we're going to have people over to our website, we need to get the house in order. And let's start there. That's getting things in order on your site. And we'll talk about what some of those things are and how to improve them. The difference is we see things differently than the engines see. And at the end of the day, all we really have are words on the page. That's what the engine sees. Words are the building blocks of our communication. Choosing the right words, choosing the right groupings of keywords, ultimately will give us relevancy, or the lack thereof. Relevancy is the most important thing about search, whether it's paid or organic. The more relevant you are for a particular query, the more likely you are to deliver to the user what they're looking for, and the more likely they are to transact in whatever your transaction may be. So rule number one, let's start by calling things what they are. So throughout the corporate jargon, the terminology that you might use in the industry that maybe your consumers don't use. Here's a perfect example. Meineke is a very large chain of car care centers in the US. And notice here, they call it steering and suspension systems service. I can tell you that nobody in the US calls it that. We say we're going to get an alignment check, we're going to get our shocks or our struts checked. So which language is your target audience more likely to use? Honey, I'm going to Meineke for some steering and suspension services, or I'm going to get my, my alignment checked. And if you have questions and you're not sure, use tools like Google Insights for search. See what the volume is. Is there more volume on steering and suspension services, or is there more volume on alignment, shocks, struts, that sort of thing? The location of keywords is important. It's not just about choosing the keywords and the right keywords, it's how you position them on the page. Don't get caught up in writing a novel for your site. The fact is that most people don't read end-to-end the content on your site. Nielsen says 79% of all users only scan a web page. Think of that. 79%. So you want to make sure that you're giving them the content in a way that's scannable. So how do you do that? You want to break things up into things that create a hierarchy. So that could be the use of headlines, subheadings, a very clear and uniform navigation. Make it easy for the user to flow. So we've got keywords. Now we're going to start to build the foundation of our campaign. And ultimately the foundation is what will give you the opportunity to scale your campaign based on volume or budget, or leave you sort of boxed in something that really is not going to work over time, and you're going to have to go back and rebuild. So we talked about building the foundation. We start by looking at the site. So the site that we're building a campaign for, how are content categories grouped on that site? What are the sub-content categories? And what are the goals of the campaign? You may have subsets of keywords that are specifically geared to one type of KPI, whether that's newsletter sign-up, email generation, or another set of keywords that might be more influential in driving a lead, and another set that lead up to conversion. So case in point, if I'm Sony, flat screen TV might be a very important keyword, but it's likely very different in the purchase funnel than buy 42-inch Sony Bravia flat screen. So think about that in terms of how you're going to break up your keywords. I mentioned some of the other tools that are out there to help you build the keyword list. If previous reporting exists, or technology or analytics where you can get keyword reports, you can leverage them. If you're visual and you want to see visually how the categories are broken up, Wordle, if you're not familiar, is a great tool. It looks like this. You plug in a URL and it will give you a visual representation of the keywords that make up that page, and by the relative size it will place importance, so what the vast majority of content about. It's an excellent way to start to extract keywords in a more organized fashion. Building variations, and this will go to your question. So now we have this sort of base list, so what are we going to do? We're going to build variations from the original list, and this would include things like plurals, misspellings, synonyms, other long tail queries. You want to continually analyze and regroup into, based on themes. And then from there, very important, you want to go back, you have your expansive initial list and start to add in the negatives. negative keywords to keep your ads from triggering on things that you don't want. So step back and say, you know, which keywords that I have on this list now are likely to trigger my ad for something that, you know, I don't want it to trigger for. And start to add those in. Then actually, and this is where it becomes a little more labor intensive, actually go to the engines and start to plug in your queries, or at least the major groupings of queries, and see what ads are triggering on the major search engines, and then continue to refine your negative keyword list. Again, this is an ongoing process. It never stops. This is just you know, a first pass through. So we've now built the keyword list. Now we need to group it and organize. So you want to start at the campaign level. In your account, you can have campaigns. So as you drill down, you want to think, again, how you want to organize the campaigns that allow for the most control of budget, that allow for scalability. You want to then also, as you know, start to break up your terms in different campaigns. Maybe you want to have branded terms in this campaign. You want to have your long tail, your mid tail, and your short tail terms in different campaigns as well. You can break out geo terms here. Different variations, taking into account whatever it is. If it's a different KPI, you might want to house that separately as a separate campaign. And you want to segment into relevant ad groups. We aim, and we think internally, that you want 5 or less unique keywords per ad group. Now some may say the average campaigns, you know, are literally hundreds of thousands or millions of keywords, so how in the heck am I going to group into 5? It is not easy. For, you know, for all here, you can kind of do it, or you can do it at the level that it needs to be done, and there's a lot of work that goes into it. If you manage a campaign, a very sophisticated campaign, you still know that all the technology that you have, that are the eyes and ears in the campaign, there's still a tremendous amount of manual labor that goes into it. But I would argue, if you have a keyword list of more than 5 unique words, you would be hard-pressed not to be able to break that down into more granular groups. And that's ultimately what we're going for. The more granularity that we can bring to the campaign, the more likely we can match our search keyword, our text ad, and the landing page with the query that the user is actually using. Now come text ads. So we want to, you know, start to build our text ads. We want to try to use keywords that you're using in the ad group and the ads if possible. You want to, you know, if there's a lot of clutter in the space, maybe you're the official whatever or the exclusive whatever, you might want to include that. 3 to 5 text ads minimum per ad group, and those should continue over time. But that's a good sort of starting point. And then the most important piece is really the call to action. You can have a great text ad, but if you don't tell the user what you expect them to do or what you would like them to do, then you've kind of missed that window of opportunity. Learn more, you know, buy now, get more info.